Steve, are people waking up to that? Are they waking up to the fact that they have options? And I know this process is slow, but a lot of people have grown up in a traditional America where you get home from work. They're not politicos like you or me. They get home from work, kids, dinner, whatever. You sit down. Well, let's turn on ABC News for 10 minutes and at least get the headlines of the day. Are people waking up to the fact there's no truth there? There's no nothing there. Take 15 minutes and go searching for the truth on your own. Are they waking up, and are they waking up fast enough?
I think we're really starting to see that. Poll after poll. I mean, there was a Gallup poll just last week. All-time lows in trust in the corporate press by the American people. And I don't take great pride in seeing that. I don't applaud that, but it's with good reason. I mean, they deservedly have lost so much trust. And so I do think people are waking up. I also think the way just general consumer habits have changed. The idea that if you want to watch your entertainment, you don't necessarily go and sit down and turn on the TV. You might be used to a streaming platform. In that same way, it's opened the eyes of so many people to know that it's not just one way, and that's the only way you have to do it there. You don't have to rely on places like the New York Times or ABC News or CBS to give you the quote news. And because of that, you're seeing the kinds of people that treat you with respect. I mean, that's really at the core of this. The media is not trusted by the public because the media doesn't trust the public. And so the public is turning to places that give you the truth, that give you just information. Now, you do with it what you will, because we trust that you'll be okay to do it yourself. And that's why I lay out all these stories over the last 5 to 7 years, from what happened with Trump, from what happened with COVID, and Jeffrey Epstein and beyond, because in every one of these cases, it's the media looking at the public and saying, we can't give you this truth. You don't know how to handle it. And all I'm saying is, let's get to the truth of what actually happened with these so we can move beyond the corporate press, because we don't need them.
Very fascinated to hear your answer on this one, because you had Brian Stelter, the famed Brian Stelter, on your podcast. And well, here's a little clip.
I think newsrooms just looked around and said, we don't have the laptop. We don't have evidence. We don't have evidence it's real. And we know that there are reasons to wonder if it's disinformation. Like, a lot of the lies that happen now about what happened in 2020 go like this. They say, all these they all called it disinformation. That's not true. A lot of us just wondered. We said out loud, could this be?
Right.
We said things like, some former U.S. officials think it might be. And it was always cushioned and it was not always. It was often cushioned that way. And now, in retrospect, 2 years later, 3 years later, partisans like to pretend that it was labeled disinformation, which it wasn't.
Steve, why are you pretending these people called it Russian disinformation?
Right, exactly. Well, right after that, I pressed him on this. I mean, the fact that they highlighted the letter from James Clapper and many others in the intel agency who, to this day, defend that letter as all the earmarks of Russian disinformation, and they put that out there. And okay, so you're just saying that's one theory, is it's Russian disinformation. Well, what about the other theory? Why not talk about the New York Post story? I mean, the entire media apparatus clamped down and refused to even treat the New York Post story as if it was a something to be discussed, let alone legitimate, as we now know, completely legitimate. I mean, it's one of the most embarrassing episodes. In fact, that question was in response to Brian asking me, what's the one thing that we got the most wrong over the last few years? And I believe it was the Hunter Biden laptop story in October 2020. So I think that Brian was making a defense of the media that did not hold up. I think anyone can see that. But I will say this. Brian's someone I've known for 15 years. I'm often critical of Brian when he was the media host at CNN. And I would be critical of lots of people, and many of them would block me on Twitter and refuse to engage with me offline. Brian was not one of those people, and I'm glad. I think that we need a dialogue with people who disagree in this country, which is why I was glad Brian did it. We disagreed very strongly. Everything as fundamental as whether Trump was an existential threat, which I think is completely ridiculous. But I'm glad he did it, because we need these sorts of conversations out in the open. We need to call them out, and we need people that are willing to listen and engage to get back to a place of at least some level of trust between people who have strong disagreements.
Steve, the book is uncovered. It's outstanding. I encourage people to go get it. Thank you, brother.
Support the First TV today and get instant access to exclusive specials like Who is Ron DeSantis, The History of FBI Scandals, and America's Worst Presidents. Visit thefirsttv.com/support or download the First TV app to become a supporter and start watching today.